Today is March 11th, 2025. My name is Bobby Goodman, and I am here interviewing Steve Waldman about his days at the Columbian Club. Welcome, Steve.
Hey, Bobby. So happy to be here to
Well,
talk
thank you
about
for being here.
those wonderful days.
Absolutely. Let me just start off real quick. Steve, when were you a member of the Columbian Club?
Well, I was a member of the Columbian Club as a family member from my parents, probably from about 1958. My father's CPA told him and his brother, Bill Waldman, that they needed to join the club because they were in the insurance business. And what better way to meet affluent people who had businesses and other opportunities for them than to go out to the club, and they didn't have the money to do it, but they forced them to join anyway. And then my dad picked up golf and my uncle picked up golf and started playing golf. And so as long as I can remember, I was probably 6 years old, we belonged to the club. When I turned 21, I joined the club. At the time, the initiation fee for a young person like myself was $1,000, but because I was the son of a member, I paid $500 to join the club. And I didn't think I had to pay any more initiation fees until I turned 35 as a senior member. That's my recollection anyway.
Very good. And so what did the membership, obviously when you're a family member, you had friends there as you joined at a 21-year-old.
Yes.
What did the membership look like? Were they mainly older members to you, or a lot of people your age, or what did that membership look like?
My recollection is it was a mix. When I was a little boy, the members always seemed to be older. I remember a story about me and Chuck, your brother, Chuck Goodman, Gary Goodfried, Karen Kramer. These are names from the past. Running around the club one day, and everybody was all dressed up, and Max Goodfried, Dr. Max Goodfried, who was a well-known, well-thought-of orthopedic surgeon, stopped me in the middle of the main dining room because I was kind of a wild little kid, and I was running around misbehaving, I'm sure. And he stopped me and he scolded me. And it's funny, to this day, I'm still mad at Max Goodfried because he yelled at me when I was 8 years old or 7 years old. But I deserved it. And but that recollection to me is men in sport coats, ties, women dressed up very nicely. That may have been a Father's Day or a Mother's Day, and the club was packed. That's what I do recall.
So when you joined, Steve, 21 years old, you recall about how many members?
I think the membership was between 375 and 450. That's my general recollection. And again, when I joined, there were guys that were older than me, but still young, who were members. But I was just a kid. And frankly, the four people that I knew, including myself, were Alan Goldman, Howard Rosenzweig, and your brother, Chuck Goodman. And that was the foursome. We played golf together, we did stuff together. I'll tell you one quick story about that. One day we were out there, it was in the fall or the spring, and it was late in the fall or early in the spring. We went out to play, and we teed off on number one, and each one of us hit our tee shots. It was freezing and it was windy. And so I remember getting out there. The three of us who weren't hitting were struggling, holding each other for dear life. And the one of us hitting would hit. And we all teed off on number one. It was so cold, we never even went to get our balls. We went back in the clubhouse.
That's
and
awesome.
that was the end of that golf ball.
That's awesome. So when you said your dad and uncle joined because
Yes.
they were in the insurance business,
Yes.
and it was probably going to be beneficial to them.
Absolutely.
Do you think and I'll ask the same question about when you joined, but when they joined, do you think there was a sense of anti-Semitism? Did it play anything?
Absolutely. You know, the club existence was 100%, frankly, because of the fact that Jews couldn't join other clubs in the community. And so I don't know the leadership that made this decision. It was before my time. 1952, I think, is when the club opened up in Carrollton. But somebody with good sense decided that if the Jews want to play golf and have an experience like a country club, they better build their own. So they took the downtown club and I guess closed it and opened up in Carrollton. And we weren't long after when we became members. I didn't experience a lot of anti-Semitism as a kid growing up, frankly, and frankly, I've experienced very limited anti-Semitism in my life. But I do know that if it weren't for the club, I would have never had a country club experience.
Interesting. So Steve, tell me a little bit about your relationship to the club. Were you involved in any board or committees, or, I mean, I assume they had those back then?
Right, they did. My first service to the club was as a member of the membership committee. My brother-in-law, Howard Cohen, chaired that committee. This was before he became president of the club. And I was on the committee. I was on the committee for a number of years, serving to introduce the club to people that I knew and to speak to people that I knew that may or may not be a fit to the club. That really didn't happen, but the big part of it was for me to be a person to introduce people. You'd go out and interview them. That was an interesting experience, and I enjoyed that. I did try to keep business and clubs separate because you're in work all day and you're doing all day. And so many of our clients and my clients were members of the club. I tried to separate it. That was not always easy.
Sure.
Anyway, I'd never, I don't remember how many years I was on the membership committee, but I was on the board for a few years. I don't remember who was the president. It might have been Harold Berman, not quite certain anymore, but I was on the board, served on the board for a few years. Not necessarily my thing, but that was something that I did. Kind of around the same time, I became a little active in the Jewish community, and most of my board volunteer time ended up there.
So going back to the membership committee, tell us a little bit about, if you recall, the process. When one wanted to join, was there an application? Did you have to go through membership approval, or how did that work?
You had to be invited to join the club, if I remember, and then your name would be floated in front of the membership committee. If nobody knew you, somebody would go out and interview you and come back and report to the membership committee. And I believe it was a one-ball system. I think that if one person chose not to have you become a member of the club, you could not become a member of the club. Funny how that worked back then, but a black ball was a black ball. And I can't really remember more than a couple of people in my life that did not get into the club because their reputation was such that the membership committee felt it would be in the best interest of the club not to have them join. So someone blackballed them. And then that, after the membership committee would approve, would go to the board, and I think the board was the one that had the power to blackball. I think the membership committee had the power to recommend to the board. And if I recall, Bobby, there was a box that you actually put a ball in, and then at the end of the time they would open the box. If there were any black balls in it, it may have been 2 balls, may have been 3 balls, I can't remember exactly, but I do know if there was a certain number of votes no, it was confidential, that particular applicant did not get in. I know,
Pretty
crazy, isn't it?
Yeah. Let's talk about the importance of the club to you, Steve. So we'll talk about, for you personally, how important the club was to you, and then we'll move on to maybe to the rest of your family. So tell us about that.
So for me personally, since I was such a small child, 1958, I was 5 years old, 6 years old, and I would go out to the club. When I got a little older, my parents would drop me off at the club in the summertime. The pool was great, snack bar was great. I always had a turkey sandwich with lettuce and mayonnaise on white bread with the edges cut off, and french fries. That was the only meal I ever ate as a kid at the club. And I don't remember a lot of names, but Leonard Proctor was my favorite waiter at the club, and he became a client of mine, which was amazing to me. Wow. He called me up, and then after he died, I'm really moving forward fast.
Sure.
His wife called me, and I retained her as a client, Mrs. Proctor, and then she passed away. They lived over by Love Field between what became Lemon Avenue and Marsh Lane, right in that quadrant on the right there. And they were such lovely people. There was a gentleman named Hill. I think Jesse was the head waiter. Other names that aren't coming to me right now. There was a woman who took care of all of us. Can't remember her name either, but I just remember being taken care of as a college. And they didn't call me Steve. They called me Mr. Waldman, which to this day I always laugh at, because Mr. Waldman was my father, you know. Anyway, so that was important. I used to go out there a lot of time. I used to swim a lot in the pool. They had tennis courts. I mean, I played tennis a couple times. Golf really wasn't my thing as a younger child, but I enjoyed going out to the club. The high board scared me to death. I used to have nightmares about falling off the high board and landing on the ground next to the pool. Nightmares. So I jumped off the lower board, and a few times I would jump off the high board just because I had to kind of show, yeah, I could jump off the high board too. So that was fun, and playing at the club, spending time at the club. And you remember the little grill next to the pool, and then there was a pool locker room, which was terrible. But the grill was also terrible, but the food was great. And we would just go out there and hang. Also, as a kid, anytime there was a holiday, Mother's Day, Father's Day, 4th of July, we would all go out to the club. We even used to have breakfast at the club.
Really?
Later in my life, when the club started doing that, they used to have some Shabbat dinners. Then they had lobster dinners, goes well with Shabbat. And lobster dinners were great. As I started to grow up, I used the club differently. I started to play golf, learned to play a little bit of golf. But it was a place to spend a lot of time in the summer. And during the spring, winter, and fall, we would go out there as family. A lot Sunday evening, Sunday for lunch. I remember that my dad would play golf on Sunday, and we would meet him at the club for lunch. Those kinds of things were very special, and my friends were there. You know, the people that I knew growing up, maybe fewer Sheriff Israelites, more Temple Emmanuelites, as I recall. So I didn't know them as well before the club as I did once I became a member, but those are some of the things that I enjoyed.
And while we're on your friends, to this day, are you still, those friendships you made back in the club,
Yeah,
still in contact, still friendly?
I mean, just lost one of my closest friends, Martin Goldman, who didn't join the club until later, but became, like everything else in his life, a great golfer. And of course, your brother Chuck Goodman and I, to this day, remain extremely close friends. Alan Goldman and I remain extremely close friends. Paul Gardner was out there, but he was a little older then. You know, when you're 2 years older than someone, that's a lifetime when you're 9. When you're 73, it's not quite such a big deal, right? So those people, you belong to the club. I've been friends with you my whole life. I think I even remember when you were born. Actually, I do remember when you were born. That's crazy. And let me see who else. Howard Rosenzweig was a good friend of ours back then. Unfortunately, we just lost Howard within the last, I think, 6 months. And those guys, Jack Rubin was out there. There were a bunch of guys that I, again, knew and didn't necessarily hang out all the time, but I'm still knowing and seeing a lot of these people to this day.
Very nice. What about your family, your kids? Did they spend time out at the club?
My kids did not spend as much time at the club. I think one of the reasons that we didn't spend as much time at the club as my kids began to grow up is that we had a pool. And one of the things that caused us as a family to spend less time there is that we didn't need the club's pool. We had our own pool. When I was a kid, I didn't get out of the pool at the club. Our kids didn't embrace golf, didn't embrace tennis. They had soccer and baseball and basketball and all the other sports that were played more regularly and with more organization than they were when I was growing up. So we didn't go out as much. We went out for Mother's Day, we went out for Father's Day, we went out for 4th of July. Occasionally we would go out on Sunday night, but my kids weren't exposed to the club as much as I was. I have a little story to talk about with regard to that and why we might not have spent as much time at the club. And I'm not sure if I ever shared this with you before, a little bit. The business I was in did not allow me to escape at the club like any other businessmen were able to escape at the club. My clients belonged to the club, and if they didn't belong to the club, they always were kind of prospective clients, right? You didn't know when they'd become a client. So I was always on my best behavior, and people would come up to me at the club all the time and ask me questions about their account and their insurance and their situation and their need. And it got to the point where I stopped going to the club because it wasn't relaxing for me. My dad, don't know how he handled it, but I couldn't do it. My brother-in-law was a very active member. Like I said before, he was a member of the board and then the president of the club, right around the time when Harold Osborne retired. I think Howard was the president, or very close to being president. And we as a family would go out on those days, but hardly ever in the summer did I drop my kids off at the club. So they didn't get the same level of experience as a child or children than we did. But they were out there. I mean, I have vivid memories of all that. And my mother and father were there, and my sisters and their husbands were there, and their brothers and their spouses were there. So our whole family was big anyway. I mean, we would have a table with 25 people at Mother's Day or Father's Day. That was always a fun time.
So what were a couple of your favorite memories? I know you mentioned about playing golf in the cold with,
yes.
But share a few other memories that you can recall about
Rubenstein's shrimp had the best shrimp, and I liked it with the remoulade sauce. That remoulade sauce was so good. The food at the club was better than any food you could eat anywhere in Dallas, and had a reputation to the general community, which I loved, of being the best place you could eat in Dallas. People loved to go there who weren't Jewish or weren't members to go out and experience that. So some of the meals, around the meals were always amazing to me. Another food that I loved was the ice cream ball. Remember, they had an ice cream ball that had pecans or crushed up nuts on it and hot fudge, and sometimes it had coconut, sometimes it did not. But it was this big round ice cream ball, and they would bring it to you at your table. And I mean, you didn't have to use a spoon. It was so good. And eating out there was fun. My daughters and my youngest son's bar mitzvah parties were at the club. And when Melissa was bar mitzvah, don't know if you remember this, and I'm not certain you were there, but I mean, I don't know anymore. We had Dash Rip Rock and the Dragons was the band for the adults, and in the dining room, not the dining room, but the grill is where the kids' party was, and that was a disc jockey. Bill Cody was a disc jockey, and the kids all dressed up, and it was great, and you know, braces and hair out to here, and all the things that went along with that. And the adults were in the other room eating great food and dancing to Dash Rip Rock and having the time of our lives. And that was kind of a party that we used not only to celebrate Melissa's bar mitzvah, but to engage our friends who had entertained for us over the years that we had maybe not entertained back. Had them all come. It was crazy. Then Todd's bar mitzvah was in Israel. He's the middle child. And he also had a bar mitzvah in Dallas. And he had a party for just his friends and our family at a riverboat in Lake Ray Hubbard. That was his bar mitzvah party. Michael then comes back to the club. His bar mitzvah was in the winter, and it was the theme for his bar mitzvah was snow and skiing, and we all gave everybody as a gift a pair of boxers that were made of fleece or wool or something to make them very comfortable. And that was also family and Michael's friends only, because it was getting out of hand, some of these bar mitzvah parties. But we had one. So I remember those are some of the things that were fun. I do remember fun in the men's locker room. some stories I probably can't tell, but I just remember funny. Some of the older members were really funny. My Uncle Bill Waldman was kind of like Bobby Goodman, really funny. And nothing came out of his mouth that you just didn't burst out laughing over. And, you know, I had my locker, my dad was nearby, my Howard was across the way. We were all kind of in there together. And, you know, you're walking around, and they had a hot tub in the men's locker room, which I never went in because I kind of made me feel, well, I'm not going in there. I think we may have had a sauna. Didn't really have any exercise equipment to my recollection. We might have done that later. But I enjoyed the men's locker room, just the experience of hanging out there. I didn't enjoy a lot playing golf. I didn't enjoy practicing golf. It was something that my ADD just would not allow me to enjoy. But meeting people, seeing people, Sunday nights at the club when my family would come as young, my children were young, the Gardners were young, the Goldmans were young, the Goodmans were young, the Lermans were young, the Hoffers were young. They would all bring their friends, their children, and we'd all have dinner at the club. Just really a lot of fun, and enjoyed that experience.
Awesome. I have to go back. You mentioned bands, and I have to just ask this question just because I know you so well. There was a band called The Revolution once.
Yes, I remember that.
I think you were the lead singer, if I recall.
Lead singer in The Revolution.
Did y'all ever play at the Columbian Club?
If we played at the Columbian Club, it would have been for a bar or a bat mitzvah party. We did play, I know, at Northwood Country Club for the Frankfurt twins bat mitzvah party, Barbara and Beth. And I remember because I was in college already, and Chuck and I came home to Dallas from college for the weekend to play at the party, and we made $250 as a band,
Awesome.
$50 a piece. There were 5 of us. I was dating Jackie at the time, and I wanted to go see Jackie. So at the end of the, forgive me, gig, I went to the 4 other guys and said, I'll make you a deal. I'll give each one of you $12.50. If you'll clean up my part, I'm gonna go see Jackie. And they were happy to get 12 and a half more bucks. Because remember, we're each getting $50, which was huge back then for a 3-hour
That's
performance.
awesome. That's
So
awesome.
I know we played. One more thing about the club that was great that I enjoyed. My son Todd, who graduated from Duke in 1969, was a member of an a cappella group called the Speak of the Devil. Duke were the Blue Devils, and we brought the Speak, they call themselves Speak, to Dallas Christmas vacation, probably in 1997 or 1998, and they all stayed at our house. There were 12 or 15 of them, all stayed at our house, and they performed at the club as our guest, and we invited anybody we could think of to come to the club. It had seating set up, and there may have been about 40 of our friends that were there watching. And this men's a cappella singing group was amazing. And they also performed when they came at Children's Hospital. They performed at the Fort Worth Coliseum before they sang the national anthem, before rodeo. They performed in our office building back when we were on Central and 635. In that first level, there were 4 levels, and sound, and people from all around were singing, listening, and it was fascinating. And I feel really great that the club allowed me to do that. That was a great venue for that.
So that's interesting. Let me ask you this, Steve. Why do you think the Columbian Club closed?
Oh, so many reasons. A change in philosophical behavior from the community. Restaurants. You know, when I was growing up, there was Wyatt's Cafeteria, there was Beck's Fried Chicken, which was Youngblood's before that. There was El Chico, right? There was Chinese Cottage on Greenville Avenue, and maybe a place called Cody's, which was in Preston Royal now, where it's, I guess, on the southeast corner. There were 10 different restaurants that went in there, and that was kind of it. I mean, I'm sure there were restaurants downtown. There was one restaurant in Preston Royal where Royal China is now, where some African-American guy with a big tall hat. There was a restaurant Kontiki maybe, in the Hilton, I'm not sure, but there were no places for you to go out to eat. Steak and Ale was the first nice restaurant you could go to, but the club had fabulous food. And everybody would go to the club for dinner. Then as things changed, opportunities presented, the club wasn't convenient. The club was, way out in Carrollton. So people found restaurants nearby, and I found that that was a reason. Another reason was the older membership that didn't play golf, but still wanted to support the club, started to retire, die off, whatever it may be, and the newer members were always looking for value for their dollar. The value for the older members, to me, was I'm a member of a Jewish country club, and my membership, being at a Jewish country club, is enough to make me stay. It's kind of like the older membership at the JCC. For years, we had so many members at the J that never came to the J. People now want to use the J. They're going to join the J, they're going to use it. If they don't use it, they're not going to join the J. That's kind of how that community has changed. So I think our membership started to reduce in number, and getting new members in was tougher. Economic times might have been such that it was tougher. Some of the other clubs in the area started opening up. Royal Oaks was open. Brookhaven had been around, but it was open. I don't think that Northwood was open yet. Dallas Country Club, not open yet. Still maybe not open. Brook Hollow, definitely at the time, wasn't open. And then maybe a few other clubs around, but Prestonwood is another club that opened, people could belong to. And it was easier, maybe even less expensive. And I don't know, people just started to drift away and couldn't get members. We stayed for a long time. I think that I was a member of the club until right around 2000. My dad passed in 2001. Pretty sure I was a member when he passed. And they were probably members at that time also, although I don't know how much my mom came. And even the card ladies that used to come and play cards all the time, they got older and they started doing other things. And so the value of the club in those people's mind began to change. And with all of the other options we had for entertainment in Dallas, which is probably one of the greatest cities in the country for various dining options, has started to bloom. So to me, that's one of the main reasons. And I think that it just kind of went by the wayside. You had mentioned earlier, what would happen if we were to reform the club today? I believe I would join the club. I don't play golf anymore, but I like the fact that there was a common place to go out and have friends, neighbors, people you knew. You'd walk in. I used to jokingly call it Alaman left and Alaman right, like a square dance, because I was always walking around shaking hands as I walked through the club, because I knew so many, because so many were my clients. I enjoyed part of that. Didn't enjoy part of that, but I think today, now at 73, I think it would be great to run into you, to run into some of the guys that were members there that I don't get to see anymore because our paths don't cross.
Right.
It was a great place. Again, I don't know how successful it would be. The Dallas community is extremely well off financially. There are many, many, many people who have moved here, who have a lot of money, can afford to join the club, probably would join the club. They like the golf. Although that's no longer an option. I would hope that if they would ever do that again, it would be closer in, but that's probably not an option either.
Right. Have you heard of the new Columbian Club?
I have heard of the new Columbian
Club. Have you been there?
Have not. I'll be there. My understanding is that Brian Rutt, daughter of Janelle Friedman, son of Janelle Friedman and Larry Rutt, who's an entrepreneur for sure, opened some great restaurants, opened up a bar called the Columbian Club, and was able to find at the club some memorabilia and put it up around the club. I think they're using the club's old logo, which I think is totally cool. And I think I've been told they serve Parmesan bagels, which was one of the greatest things the club ever did. Everybody who went to the club wanted Parmesan bagels. All the guests especially wanted Parmesan bagels. And I don't know what else they have, but I'm sure they have, drinks named after the club and things of that nature. I'd love to go see it. Jackie and I don't go out that much anymore, but one of our plans in the not too distant future is to go out and hang out at the Columbian Club. I think it's in East Dallas somewhere. We'll find it.
There you go. So Steve, let me, in closing, what is there anything that I didn't ask that you'd like to share, or because I do have one follow-up question.
I think you get a feel for how I felt about the club.
Well, so
it's a great place to be.
So if somebody mentions the Columbian Club, what's the first thoughts that come through your mind?
Happiness, comfort, friends, a place that was mine. We didn't call the Columbian Club the Columbian Club. We called it the club. And I think if you talk to any Jew in Dallas who had been around for a while, even if they didn't belong to the club, they called it the club because it was the club. And I'm proud to have been a member, grateful for my father and uncle to have joined. My other uncles joined, my aunt joined. I mean, the whole Waldman family were members of the club. And not that I would see them out there all the time, but we're supposed to be a member. If you could be a member, you're supposed to be a member. It's a great place.
Very nice. Steve, thanks for sharing your memories about the Columbian Club.
Bobby, thank you for doing this. I love the club. My wife loved the club. She didn't play golf much, but Jackie and I enjoyed it and love responding to questions about my memories there.
Very, very cool. Thanks again.
Thanks, Bobby.